Parents spent 6 figures on golden child sister, refused me $200. Then she went to jail. Growing up, I always knew I was different. Not in the way that makes you special or unique, in the way that makes you invisible. My younger sister Emma was the sun in our family's solar system, and the rest of us were just debris floating in her gravitational pull. I was the oldest, then came my middle brother Jake, and finally Emma, born 5 years after me when I was already in kindergarten. From the moment Emma arrived, everything changed. My parents, who had been reasonably attentive to Jake and me, suddenly only had eyes for her. At first, I thought it was just new baby excitement. Surely it would wear off. It never did. The signs were subtle at first. Emma got the bigger bedroom when we moved to a new house. She got brand name clothes while Jake and I wore hand-me-downs and thrift store finds. Her birthday parties were elaborate affairs with rented bounce houses and catered food, while ours were simple cake and ice cream gatherings in the backyard. When I asked why, Mom would say, "Emma's still young enough to appreciate these things. You're growing up now." But I wasn't that grown up. I was 10. As we got older, the disparity became impossible to ignore. When I wanted to join the school soccer team, my parents said they couldn't afford the registration fee, $75. When Emma wanted to take competitive gymnastics lessons 6 months later, they somehow found the money for a program that cost $300 a month, plus equipment, plus travel to competitions. Gymnastics could lead to a college scholarship, Dad explained when I confronted him about it. She's really talented, you know. The coach says she has potential. I had potential too, but nobody ever seemed to notice. Jake got the worst of it, I think. He was stuck in the middle, not the responsible oldest, not the precious baby. He became the forgotten one. He desperately tried to get our parents' attention in whatever ways he could. He joined the debate team, made honor roll, volunteered at the animal shelter. Nothing worked. Meanwhile, Emma could bring home AC on a test and Mom would frame it and put it on the refrigerator because she tried her best. The breaking point for me came during my sophomore year of high school. I had been saving money from my part-time job at the local grocery store, putting away every penny I could. I had a dream. I wanted to attend a summer writing workshop at a nearby college. It cost $800, and I had saved $600 of it myself. I just needed my parents to help with the last $200, and I'd ask them months in advance. "We'll see," Mom said. "That's a lot of money, honey." I understood. $200 was a lot. I kept saving, kept hoping. Then Emma decided she wanted to go to cheer camp. Not just any cheer camp, an elite one in California that cost $2,500 for 1 week. Without hesitation, my parents wrote the check. I stood in the kitchen, holding the brochure for my writing workshop, watching Mom fill out Emma's camp registration form, and something inside me just broke. "What about my workshop?" I asked quietly. Mom looked up, confused. "What workshop?" "The writing workshop. The one I've been saving for. The one I asked you about 4 months ago." Recognition flickered across her face. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry. With everything going on with Emma's camp, we just don't have the budget right now. Maybe next summer?" I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just walked out of the kitchen, went to my room, and started making plans. I would get out of this house the moment I turned 18, and I would never look back. Jake found me later that night. He sat on the edge of my bed and didn't say anything for a long time. "It's not fair," he finally said. "No," I agreed. "It's not. Do you think they even love us?" I didn't have an answer for that. The favoritism continued through high school. When it was time to get our driver's licenses, Jake and I had to pay for our own driving lessons in our own cars. I bought a beat-up Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it for $1,500, every cent I'd managed to save. Jake got an even worse deal, a rusted Ford Ranger that spent more time in the shop than on the road. Emma got a brand new Volkswagen Beetle for her 16th birthday. Paid in full, red, with a bow on top, just like in the commercials. "She's our baby," Dad said when I pointed out the hypocrisy. "We want her to be safe. And Jake and I can just crash and burn?" I shot back. "Don't be dramatic. You have cars. Be grateful." Grateful. I was supposed to be grateful for the scraps while Emma feasted. College was another nightmare. I had worked my ass off in school, maintained a 3.8 GPA, participated in extracurriculars, volunteered. I got into a decent state university with some scholarship money, but I still needed help with room and board. "We can give you $3,000, Dad said. "That's all we can manage right now." $3,000. It was something, but it wasn't enough. I'd have to take out loans for the rest, work part-time throughout school. I accepted it because I had no choice. Jake didn't even get that much. He went to community college and lived at home, working full-time at a warehouse to pay for his classes. Emma, of course, got the full ride from the bank of Mom and Dad. When she graduated high school 2 years later with a 2.9 GPA and barely any extracurriculars, our parents still sent her to an expensive private college across the country. Tuition, room and board, spending money, all covered. "She needs the experience of living away from home," Mom explained. "So did we," Jake said bitterly. "That was different. You two are more independent. Emma needs us more." Emma needed them more because they had raised her to be helpless, to expect everything to be handed to her. But I couldn't say that. It wouldn't change anything. I graduated college with $28,000 in student loan debt and a degree in journalism. I moved to a different city, got a job at a small newspaper, and started building a life that didn't revolve around watching my sister get everything I'd ever wanted. Jake struggled more. He dropped out of community college after 2 years, overwhelmed by trying to work full-time and study. He bounced between jobs, never quite finding his footing. Our parents blamed him for not applying himself, for not being more motivated. I blamed them for never giving him a reason to believe he was worth investing in. Emma, meanwhile, sailed through her expensive private college on our parents' dime. She changed majors 3 times, took 6 years to graduate, and racked up a resume that was impressive only in its demonstration of how much money our parents were willing to waste on her whims. She studied abroad in Italy for a semester, $15,000. She joined a sorority, thousands more in dues and expenses. She needed a new laptop every year because she kept breaking them. And our parents paid for all of it without complaint. After graduation, Emma moved back home. She didn't have a job lined up, didn't have a plan. She just moved back. And our parents welcomed her with open arms, converted Jake's old bedroom into a suite for her, let her live rent-free while she figured things out. She was 24 years old. I was 29, working 60-hour weeks, living in a studio apartment, eating ramen to make my loan payments. Jake was 27, sharing a house with 3 roommates, working construction, still trying to figure out what he wanted to do with his life. And Emma was at home, sleeping until noon, going out with friends every night, living like a teenager with no responsibilities. It should have made me furious. And it did, sometimes. But mostly I just felt sad. Sad for the relationship I could have had with my parents if they'd ever seen me as worthy of their love and investment. Sad for Jake, who had given up on ever earning their approval. Sad even for Emma, who was so coddled and protected that she had no idea how to function in the real world. The reckoning, when it came, was spectacular. It started with Emma's boyfriend. Chad was 28, worked at a gym, and had the kind of charm that masked an absolute void of substance. Our parents loved him because Emma loved him, and what Emma loved, they loved. Chad and Emma moved in together after dating for just 4 months. Our parents helped them get an apartment, of course. Paid the deposit, co-signed the lease, bought them furniture. Emma had finally moved out, and they wanted to make sure she was comfortable. 6 months later, Emma called mom crying. Chad had convinced her to invest in his business idea, a supplement company that was obviously a pyramid scheme. Emma had given him $8,000. Her own money, she insisted, though everyone knew she didn't have $8,000. She'd used the credit card our parents had given her for emergencies. Our parents paid it off. $10,000 in credit card debt, cleared in one payment. She made a mistake, mom said when I pointed out that this was insane. Young people make mistakes. I made plenty of mistakes in my 20s, I said. You never bailed me out. You were always more responsible. Emma needs more help. Emma needed consequences, but she never got them. The pyramid scheme was just the beginning. Chad convinced Emma to let him move his business operations into their apartment. Soon, their living room was filled with boxes of supplements, and Chad was hosting recruiting parties that went late into the night. The neighbors complained. The landlord issued warnings. Emma and Chad got evicted. They moved back in with our parents. Both of them. Our parents welcomed Chad too, set them up in Emma's suite, didn't charge them rent. Jake and I watched this unfold with a mixture of horror and dark amusement. This is going to end badly, Jake predicted. He was right. Chad's supplement scheme collapsed, as pyramid schemes inevitably do. He needed a new gig, and he found one, flipping houses. He'd watched a bunch of YouTube videos and decided he was an expert. All he needed was startup capital. Enter my parents. They gave him $50,000. When I found out, I called them immediately. Are you out of your minds? It's an investment, Dad said defensively. He's going to flip houses. The return could be substantial. Dad, he has no experience. He's going to lose all your money. You don't know that. You just don't like him because he's with Emma. I don't like him because he's a con artist who's using your daughter. We're not discussing this with you. It's our money, and we'll do what we want with it. I hung up and immediately called Jake. We had a long conversation about whether we should try to intervene, maybe talk to Emma directly. In the end, we decided it was pointless. Emma wouldn't listen to us. She never had. Chad's house flipping venture was exactly the disaster I'd predicted. He bought a rundown property without getting it properly inspected, discovering too late that it had foundation problems. The repairs cost more than the house was worth. He tried to flip it anyway, did cheap, shoddy work, and ended up selling it for a massive loss. My parents lost $40,000. It's okay, Mom said when I asked about it. These things happen in business. It was a learning experience. A learning experience. $40,000. Jake had been trying to get a small business loan to start a landscaping company. He needed $15,000 and had been denied by every bank because he didn't have perfect credit. He'd asked our parents for help, for a loan he would pay back with interest. They'd said no, they couldn't afford it, but they could afford to give Chad $50,000 to play real estate investor. If the story had ended there, it would have been bad enough. But it got worse. Chad decided that his next venture would be in cryptocurrency. He became obsessed with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, and a dozen other digital currencies I'd never heard of. He spent hours on forums and Discord servers, convinced he'd found the secret to unlimited wealth. And Emma, desperate to believe in him, desperate to prove to our parents that their investment in Chad hadn't been a mistake, encouraged him. She even started investing her own money that came from our parents, of course. Mom and Dad, incredibly, supported this. They gave Emma another $20,000 to invest in her future. She promptly gave it to Chad, who dumped it into something called Shiba Fancy Coin or some other ridiculous name. The cryptocurrency market crashed. Chad lost everything. Emma's investment evaporated overnight. Our parents had now lost $60,000 on Chad's various schemes. And then things got truly catastrophic. Chad, desperate and embarrassed, decided he needed to make back the money fast. He got involved with a group of guys who ran an illegal gambling operation out of a warehouse. Not as a participant, as a dealer. He was running poker games, collecting money, making book on sports betting. Emma knew about it. She helped him sometimes, collecting debts, delivering cash. She thought it was exciting, edgy. She posted photos on Instagram of their poker nights, all the cash on the table, her and Chad living the high life. Until the cops raided the warehouse. Chad got arrested. So did Emma. The charges were serious: illegal gambling operation, money laundering, conspiracy. Chad got hit with all of them. Emma, because she'd only been peripherally involved, got charged with conspiracy and aiding and abetting. The call came at 2 in the morning. Mom, hysterical, barely coherent. Emma was in jail. They needed bail money. Could I help? How much? I asked. $20,000. I laughed. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of it all just hit me at once, and I laughed until I cried. I don't have $20,000, I said when I could speak again. I have student loan debt and a rent payment due next week. You should call someone who's been getting your money all these years. Oh wait, that's Emma, and she's in jail. Mom started crying harder. How can you be so cruel? Your sister needs you. My sister has never needed me. She's needed you, and you've given her everything. Now she needs to face the consequences of her actions. I hung up. Jake called me 10 minutes later. They called you too? Yeah. You? Yeah. I told them no. Same. We were quiet for a moment. Do you feel bad? Jake asked. No, I said. Do you? No. Our parents came up with the bail money somehow. Maybe they took out a loan. Maybe they emptied their retirement savings. I didn't ask, and they didn't tell me. Emma and Chad both made bail, but the legal problems were just beginning. Chad was looking at serious prison time. His lawyer, an expensive one that my parents were paying for, said the best bet was a plea deal. Even with that, Chad was probably going to do at least 2 years. Emma's lawyer said she might avoid prison if she cooperated with the prosecution and testified against Chad and the others. This presented a moral dilemma. Would Emma throw her boyfriend under the bus to save herself? Of course she would. Emma took the plea deal, agreed to testify, and got sentenced to 6 months in county jail plus 3 years probation. Chad got 4 years in state prison. The whole thing was plastered all over social media and the local news. Our parents, who had always been so proud of their beautiful, charming youngest daughter, were now the parents of a convicted criminal. The gossip in our hometown was vicious. I heard about it from old friends who still lived there. People they'd known for decades stopped talking to them. They got dropped from their church committee. Mom had to quit her book club because the other women made it clear she wasn't welcome anymore. Dad's business suffered. He owned a small insurance agency, and several of his longtime clients found new agents. People didn't want to trust their insurance to someone whose daughter was a criminal, whose judgment was so obviously flawed. Everything they'd built, their whole reputation in the community, destroyed. And it was all because of Emma. Their golden child, their precious baby, the one they'd invested everything in. Emma served her 6 months and came out a different person. Jail had been hard on her. She wasn't prepared for a world where she couldn't charm her way out of problems, where she wasn't special, where her pretty face and tears didn't get her what she wanted. She moved back in with our parents for a while, but the dynamic had shifted. They still loved her, still wanted to help her, but there was a brittleness now, a resentment simmering beneath the surface. Dad especially seemed broken. All that money, all those opportunities he'd given Emma, and for what? So she could throw it all away on a loser boyfriend and a criminal scheme? I didn't visit much during this time. Jake did even less. We'd built our own lives, and we weren't interested in being dragged back into the dysfunction. But we heard things. Emma couldn't find a job with a criminal record. She was depressed, sleeping all day, barely speaking. Mom and Dad were drowning in legal debt, had drained their retirement savings, were talking about selling the house. Part of me felt vindicated. This was karma, wasn't it? They'd neglected Jake and me for decades, poured everything into Emma, and now they were reaping what they'd sown. But part of me just felt hollow. There was no satisfaction in watching my family implode, even if they'd brought it on themselves. The intervention happened about a year after Emma got out of jail. Mom called me, and for the first time in my life, she didn't ask me for anything. She didn't demand that I help Emma, didn't guilt me about being a bad sister. She just apologized. I know we haven't been good parents to you, she said, her voice small. I know we favored Emma. I know we neglected you and Jake. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say. I'd imagined this moment for years, what I would say when they finally acknowledged what they'd done. All the anger I'd stored up, all the hurt. I'd had speeches prepared, but now that it was happening, I just felt tired. Why? I asked. Why was it always Emma? Mom was quiet for a long time. I don't know, she finally said. She was the baby. She was difficult. She needed more attention, and we gave it to her, and then it became a habit. You and Jake were so independent, so capable. Emma always needed us. It made us feel needed. We needed you too, I said. You just never noticed. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It wasn't enough. An apology couldn't give me back my childhood, couldn't erase decades of feeling invisible and unworthy. But it was something. What do you want from me? I asked. Nothing, Mom said. I just wanted you to know that I know I failed you. And I'm sorry. We talked for a while longer. Mom told me about their situation. They were in serious financial trouble, might lose the house, were both working part-time jobs in their 60s to try to stay afloat. Emma was seeing a therapist, trying to get her life together. Dad barely spoke anymore, just worked and came home and sat in front of the TV. I felt bad for them. Despite everything, they were still my parents. But I also knew I couldn't fix this for them. They'd made their choices. I hope things get better, I told Mom before hanging up. I really do, but I can't be the one to save you. You have to figure this out yourselves. I understand, she said. I love you. I love you too. And I did. That was the complicated truth of it all. A few months later, I got a call from Jake. He'd been thinking about starting that landscaping business again. He'd saved up some money, enough for equipment and a truck. He was going to do it. That's great, I said. I'm proud of you. Thanks. I was wondering, would you want to invest? Like, be a silent partner? I'd pay you back with interest. Jake had never asked me for money before. Never asked for help. He'd learned from our parents' example not to expect anything from anyone. How much do you need? I asked. 5,000 would make a huge difference. But if you can't, I can do 5,000, I said. But not as a loan. As an investment. I want equity in your company. Jake laughed. Deal. 6 months later, Jake's landscaping company was doing well. He'd landed several commercial contracts, hired 2 employees. He was making good money, finally building something for himself. I was proud of him in a way I'd never been proud of Emma. Because Jake had done it himself. Nobody had handed him anything. He'd fought for every inch of ground he'd gained. Emma, meanwhile, had finally found a job waiting tables at a chain restaurant. It was a humbling experience for someone who'd always thought she was destined for greater things. But she was doing it, showing up every day, earning her own money for the first time in her life. My parents sold their house and moved into a small condo. They were still struggling financially, but they were managing. Dad had started talking again. Mom had joined a different church, one where nobody knew about Emma's past. They were trying to rebuild. And I genuinely hoped they succeeded. It took me a long time to process everything that had happened. I went to therapy, worked through the resentment and anger and grief for the childhood I should have had. I learned that I could love my parents while also acknowledging the damage they'd done. I learned that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting or excusing, just choosing not to carry the weight of their mistakes anymore. I also learned that the best revenge isn't rubbing someone's nose in their failures. It's building a life so good, so full, that their opinion stops mattering. Jake and I grew closer. We had Sunday dinners together, celebrated each other's successes, supported each other through failures. We built the sibling relationship we should have had growing up. Emma and I, we're working on it. She's changed, genuinely changed. She's humble now in a way she never was before. She works hard, pays her own bills, doesn't expect special treatment. We're not close, may never be close, but we're cordial. Sometimes we even laugh together about old memories. Our parents still struggle with guilt. At family gatherings, which happen occasionally now, I can see it in their eyes when they look at me and Jake. They know what they did. They know what it cost. Last Thanksgiving, Dad pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, he said. Of the life you built. You did that all on your own, and that's more than I can say for how I raised you. Thanks, Dad, I said. If I could go back, he started, but I stopped him. You can't. None of us can. We just have to move forward. He nodded, eyes wet. You turned out better than any of us deserved. Maybe that's true. Maybe Jake and I succeeded not because of our upbringing, but in spite of it. Maybe being the forgotten children taught us resilience, self-reliance, the value of working for what we want. Or maybe that's just the story I tell myself to make sense of it all. Either way, I'm okay now. Better than okay. I have a job I love, friends who value me, a partner who sees me. I have a life I built with my own 2 hands, and nobody can take that away from me. The favoritism didn't ruin me. It tried to, but I didn't let it. And watching Emma's perfect facade crack, watching my parents' golden child reveal herself to be just as flawed and human as the rest of us, watching the pedestal they'd built for her crumble under the weight of reality, there was no satisfaction in it. Just a sad sort of validation. I was never the problem. Their perception was the problem. Their choices were the problem. And once I truly understood that, I was free. These days, I don't think about the past as much. I don't calculate all the money they spent on Emma versus what they spent on me. I don't catalog every slight and unfairness. I don't fantasize about telling them, I told you so. Because I won. Not because Emma failed. Not because my parents suffered. Not because I got to be right about Chad all along. I won because I survived. Because I thrived. Because I built a good life without their help, without their approval, without their love being conditional on my achievements or my compliance. I won because I'm happy. And that, in the end, is the best revenge of all. But sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about that writing workshop. The one I saved for, the one they couldn't help me with because they didn't have $200. The one I missed because Emma needed to go to cheer camp in California. I think about how different my life might have been if they'd valued my dreams the way they valued hers. If they'd invested in my potential the way they invested in hers. If they'd seen me the way they saw her. And then I remember, they didn't, and I made it anyway. Sometimes the best thing your parents can do for you is show you exactly who not to be. I learned that lesson well. Subscribe for more stories like this.